Hi everyone, happy Friday. This is Mr. Benson again from the Office of Literacy, and welcome to your Grade 10 Week 1 Lesson 4 video. Before we jump into today's lesson, I wanted to tell everyone what they can expect from these videos. Each video will be a little different depending on the lesson, but there will be a general structure that each video will follow. First, you will always see a list of the resources and materials needed for the lesson. Next, you will always see a brief overview of the learning for the lesson. Next, you'll see a quick model for some of the reading, thinking, speaking, and writing required for the lesson. And finally, you'll see a preview of the learning for upcoming lessons. For your final joke of the day of the whole week, here it goes. What do you call a laughing jar of mayonnaise? LMAO! You only have a few resources and materials for Lesson 4. First is the video that you're watching now, Grade 10, Week 1, Lesson 4. The text is, again, I came, I saw, I shopped, which is the launch text. And you are completing an activity around rereading the text and responding to a prompt using transitional words and phrases. And once again, all of these text materials and the video link can be found in the actual lesson itself. Your learning target for today is I can accurately use a transitional word or phrase to join two related ideas. You're going to be given a list of transitional words and phrases separated by category, and you're going to be able to figure out how each of those words or phrases can join two related or oftentimes unrelated ideas. Let's see what you're doing today with the read, think, talk, write protocol. So for the read part, either independently or with a family member, you're going to review the text. And once again, the text is the launch text that you've looked at a few times this week. For the think part, you're going to do a few things, but you're going to focus on transitional phrases and how writers often use them to create connection and flow between ideas. And different transitions serve different purposes, such as showing contrast, showing cause and effect, or elaborating upon an idea. We'll look at those more in depth in a second. But as you are reading, you're going to think about how often do you use transitions in your writing and or conversation. So when you're writing something, how often do you use these transition words? And these transition words and phrases are listed in your note catcher on this little chart here, and we're going to look at the chart in more depth in just a minute. Now for the talk part, you're going to engage with a family member, caregiver, or friend. It could be the same person from before or a different person. On the question, how do writers select appropriate transitional words and phrases? So how do writers, including yourself, determine what transitional words and phrases to use in their writing? For the write part, you're going to do a few things. First, you're going to circle the transitional words and phrases in the launch text. So when you're reviewing it, every time you come across a transitional word or phrase, you're going to circle it. And also on your note catcher, you're going to respond to the following prompt. What is one item you regret buying? What motivated you to buy this item for yourself or someone else, and why do you now regret that purchase? But you're also going to use transitional words and phrases from the grid to connect to your thoughts and ideas. To close out, you're going to share your writing with someone and relate it back to the essential question of the unit, which is, what do our possessions say about us? So you're going to take that writing you just completed on an item that you regret buying, and you're going to connect it back to the question of what do our possessions say about us. Then after you're done with all of it, we encourage you to read a book for at least 20 minutes. So the quick model today is around identifying transition words. We're first going to go over this chart here. We're going to look at the 6 major categories of transition words and phrases, and then we're going to look at examples of each. And then finally, we're going to close out by looking at the first paragraph of the launch text. And I'm going to model for you what you're going to have to do by yourself later, which is identify these transition words and phrases in the launch text. So the first category of transition words and phrases is list or add ideas, words that list or add ideas. So these are basically transition words or phrases that add on to an idea that you just said or list something to reinforce what you just said. So some examples here are first of all, secondly, then, in addition, and also. My example has to do with shopping. All of these are connected, all these examples. Shopping today gave me anxiety. First of all, I had to decide what I wanted to purchase, which is never easy. So the first of all here is adding on to this idea that shopping gave me anxiety because I never know what I want to purchase, and that's never an easy thing. The second category is show similarity. These are transition words or phrases that show the two ideas that you're listing are connected. They're similar. They go hand in hand. They're not opposite. The examples listed here, this is a typo. It's supposed to say similarly, not similarity, equally, and likewise. So my example, it's connected to the first example on shopping, is the jeans were way too expensive. Similarly, the shoes were also outside of my price range. So I talk about the anxiety I have of shopping. I never know what to buy. Then I tell you all that the jeans were way too expensive. And I wanted to also tell you that the shoes were very expensive too. So I had to use a similarity transition word because both these ideas are connected. They're both connected by the fact that they're very expensive items. The third category is show contrast. So these are transition words or phrases that show how two ideas are in opposite of each other or are in contrast of each other. The examples here are although, however, yet, on the other hand. For example, on the other hand, the t-shirts were high quality and completely affordable. So I talked about the jeans and shoes being way too expensive, but then I talked about how the t-shirts were actually pretty cheap. So I had to use a contrast transition word or phrase, so I used on the other hand. The fourth category is emphasize. This is basically when you're really trying to just like show the importance or the most important even idea behind what you said. So you're really trying to like drive home your point. Some examples here are in fact, most importantly, and immediately. So my example here is most importantly, they were on sale for buy one, get one free. What a bargain. So I talked about how the shirts were really affordable, but I had to tell you that most importantly was the fact that they were buy one, get one free. That's such a bargain because I'm basically getting a t-shirt for free. The fifth category is show effect. Sometimes there are things that cause other things to happen, like a cause and effect relationship. And so these transition words or phrases show that one thing caused the other thing. The examples here are consequently, as a result, and therefore. For example, as a result, I went a little overboard and bought too many t-shirts. I know my mom will not be pleased. So I'm talking about how there was a huge bargain here, that there was a buy one, get one free. But I'm saying that because there was a buy one, get one free deal going on, as a result of that, I went overboard and I bought way too many t-shirts, which is going to make my mom mad at me. So I had to use a show effect transition word or phrase, so I chose as a result. Finally, the last category is illustrate or show, and this is when you're like basically giving an example of what you just said to further prove your point. The examples here are, for example, for instance, and specifically. The examples down here, because it would be cut off by the video, I said she is probably going to lecture me on the importance of saving money like she always does. For example, last week she talked to me for 2 hours about my 401k, which is funny because that's for people that are retiring. So I talk about how I went overboard and I bought way too many shirts. My mom's going to be mad at me. I talk about how she's going to lecture me on the importance of saving money, and I had to give an example of that by saying last week she talked to me for 2 hours about my 401k to prove that she's done this in the past and she's probably going to do it again. So now we're going to spend some time starting the write activity, which asks you to circle the transitional words and phrases in the launch text. And I'm going to only read just one paragraph with you, just paragraph 1. I'm going to read it for you now, and I'm going to actually model for you the different kinds of transition words that I come across, and I'm going to circle them. I'll actually underline them here, but you can choose to circle or underline on your paper. It's up to you. And I'll also connect each of the transition words and phrases back to the different categories to show you my thought process of how I realized it was a transition word or phrase to begin with. So let's start reading, and then we'll stop when we come across the first word or phrase. Perhaps you know what became of the robotic dog, ripped jeans, or gadget you couldn't live without a few years ago. Maybe you remember where you put that video game you used to love. It was a must-have item just last year. It's possible, though, that you've lost track of these things. Okay, so the first word I came across was though, and it sounds like although, so that already sent the message to my brain that it's probably a transition word, but I know it's a contrast transition word because if I read the sentence before, it's saying all of these things were must-have items just last year. But now it's saying it's possible, though, that you've lost track of these things. So even though in the past they used to be these items that you always knew where they were because you love them so much. Now it's possible you've lost track of them. So this is definitely showing contrast between the two ideas. Let's keep reading. It's possible, though, that you've lost track of these things. Consequently, they are forgotten but not gone, collecting dust in a closet somewhere. So consequently is an example listed in the chart here, so I definitely know it's a transition word. And I know it's showing effect because it's basically saying that you've lost track of these things. So because of that, the effect is they're probably collecting dust in a closet somewhere. They are forgotten but not gone because they're somewhere in the closet collecting dust. Let's keep reading and find a few more. In the meantime, you may have developed a taste for newer, fresher goods such as a waterproof smartphone, designer shoes, or limited edition sneakers. There are two that I found here. First is the phrase "in the meantime." So this is a little bit tricky. It's actually an Illustrator Show transition word or phrase, transition phrase, but it's typically could be its own category of like a time transition word, but for the purpose of this activity, it actually matches closest with the Illustrator Show. So it's basically trying to illustrate or show that because these old items are in the closet collecting dust, in the meantime, you're probably like developing new taste for things. So it's showing you that like time has passed and you're basically moving on to something new. The second transition word that I found here is a phrase such as, it lists out examples of different newer tastes that you may have, like a waterproof smartphone, designer shoes, or limited edition sneakers. In this one, it's pretty obvious that it's also an Illustrator Show. It's giving you an example of different items that have replaced the old items that are in the closet collecting dust. Now it's your turn. You're going to complete the exact same activity. You're going to read the rest of the launch text, and you're going to circle or underline the transition words or phrases you come across. You can choose to write what kind of transition word or phrase it is in the margins, like next to the words you circle or underline. You don't have to, but for me, that's an easy way for me to actually like double check and make sure it truly is a transition word or phrase. I also wanted to remind you that not only are you doing this while you're reading or reviewing the launch text, you also have to So because it's Friday, that means next week you'll start a brand new week of lessons, week 2 lessons. So the week 2 lesson 1 learning target is listed here. I can complete first read annotations to help with comprehension and future analysis of the text. The text is going to be the necklace. It's a short story. And on Monday, you all are going to engage in a first read of that text. And this is a very important lesson because it's going to set you up for success for all of the lessons in the future for that week for the necklace. And so it's a very important lesson. I'm excited for next week because I love the necklace. I find it to be a great text, and I think all of you will enjoy it too. If you have any questions throughout any of this, we definitely recommend you reach out to a parent, caregiver, or a friend, but you also can email your teacher for support. You may already know their email address, but in case you don't, I wanted to tell you that every single teacher across the district has the same format for their email. It's their first name, their last name at DetroitK12.org. If you don't remember their first name, you can go on PowerSchool and their first name should be listed there under your schedule. For example, if your teacher's name was Mary Shields, Her email address would be mary.shields@detroitk12.org. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and remember, keep learning.